I'm Bruce Apar, and you're watching Frank Talks with Bruce the Blog. Hello and welcome to Frank Talks with Bruce the Blog, brought to you by Penny Saver and our parent company Chase Media Group. And we thank CEO Carla Chase and my co-host Frank J. Rich for putting us up every week. Frank is not here right now. He will be here very shortly. And we also want to remind you about our special monthly supplement that we put out for youth sports in the area, Indian Point Power Players, sponsored by Entergy. And if you have any photos or any stories about young athletes in the area, just send them to editor@pennysavercommunity.com. And let's get right to our guest this week. We want to welcome Rabbi Velvl Butman, right, of Chabad of Westchester. Did I pronounce it correctly, Rabbi? Okay. Very well. Right. Oh, good. And Chabad is something a lot of people maybe have seen, the name. I don't know, you get around a lot, and I know Yehuda Eber, who is the Chabad of Yorktown, where we're based, is very visible, which I always find, very encouraging and comforting. That, I mean, there's obviously clergy of different faiths who do make themselves very readily available in the community for good things and not so good things when occasion warrants. But why don't we talk first, Rabbi, about what Chabad is and what its mission is?
Chabad is a movement that began a few hundred years ago in Russia by its founding father, who, interestingly, in just a few days we will observe the 200th anniversary of his passing, right. Rabbi Schneur Zalman of Liadi, the founder of Chabad. Schneur turned into Schneer's son, and that's why the Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson, who we represent here, is named Schneerson because it is Schneer's son. He is a son after a son after a son. He's a great-grandson of the original founder of Chabad movement. Right. Chabad in Hebrew stands for three words: Chachma, Bina, and Da'as. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Mm-hmm. Rabbi Schneur Zalman believed that in order for a person to live a life of true happiness, you have to be able to appreciate intellectually the purpose and the goal of life itself. Right. Not just to live life robotically, even if you're doing the right thing, but rather to appreciate it and understand the why of life. Right.
Which is, I think, a question people implicitly ask almost every day, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what every child asks. Why?
Right.
So when you tell a child, just do it, that's one way of answering.
Right.
But true education also includes being able to explain to a child, for example, we just had this tragic shooting, and we're all responding in different vigils and so on. It is important to explain to a child why it is wrong to take somebody else's life.
Yes.
Not just the law that it is wrong, because you can go to jail, but rather the why of that.
Right.
The Rebbe established over 4,000 Chabad Lubavitch centers around the globe to bring, with unconditional love, the message of Chabad, which believes at its heart, the name is Chabad, and it was established in a town called Lubavitch.
Right.
Which means the village of love, the town of love in White Russia.
Right.
Hence we have the name Chabad Lubavitch.
Right.
And it's a movement that believes strongly in educating with love unconditionally, sharing the joy and beauty of meaning of Judaism unconditionally with whoever is interested.
I was going to say, but as it applies to anybody, right?
Absolutely, regardless of race, color, or creed.
We recently had on the show, actually on the immediate past show, Dr. Paul DeVries, who is a theologian, and he happens to be the head of the New York Divinity School. And we were talking about this, and I just want to touch on it with you also, that whether it's Christianity or Judaism, There's the religion, but then there also is the philosophy, isn't there? Which is what you're saying. It's a philosophy of life, regardless of your faith or religion, right?
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Chabad is the philosophy.
Right.
Chachma bina das, the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge.
Right.
Lubavitch is the town
Right.
and the means through which it is taught.
Right.
The Rebbe's fundamental teaching is love.
Right.
In order to be able to share something with a child or with an adult, you have to do it with love, and the recipient has to feel that you sincerely care about them and embrace them unconditionally.
Right.
And therefore, in Judaism, we know the primary dictum of Judaism is ve'aftala re'echa kamocha, love your fellow as yourself.
Right.
Once you have love in place, you can continue from there.
Yeah. And Lord knows we could use a lot more wisdom, understanding, and love, right, in this world
Absolutely.
every day. But I know the word evangelism isn't typically associated with Judaism, but it really is a kind of evangelism, isn't it? I mean, in fact, when you see Christian evangelists, they mostly talk about love, don't they? They use that word a lot. So, I mean, is there a parallel there?
I'm an expert on Jewish philosophy,
Okay.
so let me answer what I do know.
Right.
And for a moment, allow me to illustrate something.
Okay.
This is a candle. This candle, as the Rebbe would say, is a lump of wax, that's all it is,
Right.
and a wick on top, which runs through the center of the candle.
Right.
As is, it's kind of meaningless. It's just a lump of wax that's got weight
Right.
sitting in your closet. Bruce, can I ask you for a favor?
You
Please hold it
bet.
for a moment.
That's what I'm here for. The host has many jobs.
If I take a match and I light that candle,
Mm-hmm. Right.
I have just transformed a lump of wax and a wick into a candle that gives off light, warmth, heat, love. The human being is the same. Our physical bodies are compared in the Rebbe's teachings to a lump of wax. Within our body runs a divine soul. Man is created in the image of God. The question is, can we ignite the spark and the flame so we can harmonize body and soul in harmony to benefit the greater community, and as a result live a life of meaning and purpose and happiness?
Wow.
So it's not a question of proselytizing,
Right.
because proselytizing would indicate I believe in one thing, you believe in something else, and
Right.
I'd like you to join my
Yes.
way of thinking.
Right.
The Rebbe says no.
Right.
I don't want you to get somebody else to become you. I want you to help them light their own soul
Right.
with their own matches,
Right.
so they turn their life, their lump of wax, and their wick into a life of purpose and meaning.
Yeah.
You know, I find it fascinating.
Or you might say, to extend the metaphor, into a life of illumination. Right?
Absolutely,
Right?
exactly.
Right.
I find it personally fascinating. We live in a generation that has never had, ever in history before, so many conveniences. I notice your
Yes.
iPhone, I notice
Right.
my iPhone.
Right.
We never had this technology throughout history.
Yes.
And yet, the antidepressant pharmaceutical companies are making billions, which means there is a tremendous need for people to take medicine to find happiness in life.
Yes.
Our great-grandparents were worried if the milk would last overnight. There was no refrigerator.
Right. Right.
If they had to wash their clothing or their laundry, they had to do it by hand.
Right.
We don't have to worry about any of that today. We have all the luxuries of life, and yet it is a generation of kids that are perhaps the least happy that ever existed.
Yeah. No, yeah, and
I give a class on
yes.
college campus weekly.
Right.
I can tell you firsthand.
Right.
Kids are hurting.
Yeah.
The reason for that is their lump of wax is in beautiful condition. Body is perfect. Their wick, their soul is in perfect condition. We are not teaching our children how to bring a flame of warmth, of light, of illumination to make your wick, your body, and your soul work in harmony to yield a life of happiness.
So, without getting necessarily too heavy-handed or off track about it, in a way, what you're saying, Rabbi, let's just say, puts aside the issue in these worst tragedies of guns or video games or even medication, all of which have been cited as contributing factors on various levels. I mean, you're saying it's all in here. It's not out there. It's in here.
That's correct.
Right?
Allow me to clarify.
Right.
Of course, we believe in the God-given gift of modern medicine.
Right.
And when someone needs medication, of course they should take it as prescribed by a physician.
Right.
But on the other hand, when somebody is not happy, the solution is not
medication.
A patch.
Right, right.
Just pumping them up with medication
right.
and ignoring the issue. The issue is you haven't lit the flame.
Right.
And as long as a person lives a life of just wax and wick, but there's no flame, they feel meaningless.
Right.
Much like a candle that is lying in your drawer, but it's not lit yet, and it's a meaningless object.
Right.
Until I actually put the flame of a divine purpose of existence that yields and generates a sense of happiness.
Well, at the Yorktown Vigil for Newtown and Sandy Hook, Rabbi Apar, who was with Chabad of Yorktown,
one of Chabad of Yorktown,
and we wish him well. That I know he wasn't feeling well, and
correct.
And we thank you for stepping in. But he made the point when he got up to speak at the vigil about we have to make sure that the lightness extinguishes the darkness. That's one of the things he said. Yeah.
He was quoting the Rebbe.
Right, yes, right, he was.
The Rebbe always believed that when you encounter darkness, you don't battle darkness. You focus your energy on bringing light, illuminating.
Right.
So in the darkest of chambers, of rooms, if you light one little candle, that candle is seen from afar and all of the darkness instantly disappears.
Right.
So the answer to darkness, including this tragedy here, is not so much to battle the darkness, but rather to teach our children how to bring light into their life.
Right.
So what we would call today in modern lingo, it's preventive medicine.
Right. Yes.
If a child has a sense of purpose and appreciation for the divine gift of life, they wouldn't even consider hurting somebody else's life because it is so beautiful and so precious. Why would I do that?
Right.
But then again, if I only view life as just a lump of wax and it's meaningless, then why not?
Right.
So in a sense, I feel that this is a time to consider and reevaluate how is our education system doing.
Well, yes, I was going to ask about that. Well, there's that. It goes. What you're saying goes right to education in the schools and at home.
Absolutely.
The family structure, building character, right? I mean, it's all about that. Yeah.
The Rebbe in one of his letters writes that American schools have become excellent in teaching academics.
Right.
We have the best schools in the world, no question about it. But that is only the lump of wax.
Right. I'm going to just going to blow this out now. Yeah.
And the wick.
Yeah.
We need to give the child much more than the data.
Right.
Google has the answers. Why should I go to school? I could just go to Google and get an answer.
Right.
A child goes to school not only to get the data, but also to learn, how do we say in Yiddish, to be a mensch.
Yes, right.
To appreciate the very purpose of their existence.
Yes.
And unfortunately today, there is a blur and a confusion of what is the purpose of the schools.
Right.
Which is one of the reasons that it would be a very appropriate thing to do to have in every school a moment of silence. And I specifically say the word silence, not a moment of prayer.
Right.
Because a moment of prayer opens up the door to the question of
which prayer,
and church and state,
and whose
so
prayer.
on,
yes, right.
Which is a conversation of its own. But let's leave that alone.
Right.
We can all agree that when a child begins his day with gratitude, with appreciation for life,
right,
and when he give him 60 seconds, a moment of silence to reflect, when the teacher says, "I would like the children in the room to reflect on the value of life, whatever that may mean." Mm-hmm. And every mother and father can choose freely in a free country, in a free democracy. Teach your child what you would like them to think in those few moments of silence. But at least a child grows up thinking every day, why am I here? So they gain an appreciation and value.
So you're saying to do this every day in the schools, at the beginning of the school day.
You know, we live in a world of marketing.
Yes, we do.
There's a reason why Coca-Cola, for example, spends hundreds of millions of dollars flashing that billboard, Coca-Cola. We all know that Coca-Cola tastes good.
Right.
Or we live in Westchester County, Pepsi Cola as well.
Right.
Nevertheless, they keep on flashing their ads because the more times you see it, the more you remember it.
That's absolutely right.
If a child remembers daily,
Yeah.
in the Jewish prayer, when we put on the tzitzis, which we wear, the fringes that come on a small tallis or a
Right.
large tallis in the synagogue, we say the words, Ureisem also uzachartem. You will see them and you will remember. It'll serve as a reminder. The human being is very often distracted. And today more than ever with texts and emails and God knows what, everybody's distracted.
Yes.
So when we give a child an opportunity at least once a day, in the morning, when he's fresh, before he starts his day, to have a sense of gratitude for life and to reflect, why am I here? What's my purpose? Why is my candle here? Is my flame giving off light and illumination and warmth? The result is a very different child.
So has Chabad attempted to talk to educators or school systems about this proposal?
Absolutely.
And what's the response?
Amazing. Without I don't
Amazingly
wanna use
good or amazingly not?
I have spoken to many educators and made specifically the point. I mentioned to them that I was reading an article on psychology recently, and the professor that wrote the article argued that the reason why so many people are unhappy today is because in order to have happiness, you first need to have your primary ingredient known as gratitude. One
Yes.
word.
Right.
Once you have gratitude, you can be happy.
Right.
And I scratched my head and I said, this is interesting. For 3,500 years, Judaism has been saying the first thing that we say when we wake up in the morning is, Modeh ani lefanecha. I give thanks to Almighty God.
Right.
That's the opening words that a Jewish person says when he opens his eyes or her eyes in the morning.
Right.
When you begin your day with appreciation, with gratitude, then the rest of it is manageable. But if you don't even appreciate the fact that thank God you have 2 feet and 2 hands and your
Yes.
lungs are breathing and
Right.
thank God you're not in the hospital and you're not sick,
Right.
then everything else changes. And therefore, when I talk to educators in Westchester County and colleagues of mine throughout the United States and abroad, if you take the prayer element out of it, because that can be a political hot button,
Right.
which prayer, who's going to write the prayer? But after all, when we tell a child, just reflect on the virtue and the value of life. Appreciate who you are.
Right.
In one of the Rebbe's teachings, the Rebbe states the following. He says, birth is God's way of saying, I need you. The very fact that
Yeah.
a child is here
Right.
is testimony to the fact that the divine creator chose to create this particular person, regardless of race, color, or creed, at a given moment in history.
Right.
And in that context, every human being is critical. We're all created in the divine image.
Right.
Nobody is an extra pawn on the board. So if a child wakes up every morning feeling a sense of pride and gratitude for the opportunity of the gift that he has to live another day, then with help from above, we can hope for a much better and a brighter future.
Right.
Whereas today we are telling the child, you know why you can't commit a crime? If you ask the average child that doesn't have a sense of faith at all, if he commits a crime, he's going to go to jail.
Right.
What you effectively just told him, be careful, the cops are out there.
Right.
But if the cops are not out there, I'm free to do what I want.
Right.
I do want to point this
Yeah.
out to you, which the Rebbe would point out. On the United States dollar bill, which is full of symbolism. If you look at the backside, I'm holding a single dollar bill here. It reads, in God we trust.
Yes. Right. That's right.
As we say, if it's good for our money, it's good for our kids.
Right.
If the dollar bill can carry it, if every courtroom in the United States can carry it, if every president is sworn in with a Bible,
Right.
with the faith, the United States was founded on it. If you look at the dollar bill's upper left corner, there's an eye here.
Yes.
The eye is symbolizing the eye that sees. When you tell a child the reason why you cannot take somebody else's life, unfortunately, as we've just witnessed, not somebody, but 26 innocent people's lives, is not only because the policeman said you're not allowed to, but the one that gifted you life and that individual life says in the commandments,
Right.
thou shalt not murder. It is not yours to touch.
Right.
You have no rights to it. And there is an eye that sees. Whether the policeman is watching or not
Right.
is irrelevant.
Right. Right.
From a perspective of faith, morality, in God we trust, we have a different outcome. So I'm not advocating to make the school system religious.
Right.
All I'm asking is, let's make the school system similar to our dollar bills.
Right.
And give a child a sense of purpose and meaning.
Right.
So they have a respect, as we say in the dollar bill also, I pluribus unum, out of many one.
One, right.
We are one people.
Right.
We are one nation. We're proud Americans. And as Americans, we have to realize that the founding fathers of this country were courageous people, came to a country to found it upon freedom of religion.
Right.
And freedom of religion doesn't mean freedom of religion. It means freedom to practice religion.
Right. Right. So what you're saying, another way of putting it, is you want to make the schools an accomplice in building character of their students, right? I mean,
correct.
That's a way of saying. But getting back for a moment, Rabbi, to what you said about when a child is born, it's God's way of saying, I need you. Well, again, we are right now, I think it's fair and accurate to say the entire nation is in mourning, which happens on very rare occasions, President Kennedy's assassination, but it feels that way now. It feels the entire nation, our heart goes out to those people because they're us and we're them, right? I mean, so what, is there commentary? If when a child is born, it means God is saying, I need you. What does it mean when a child is taken away?
King Solomon, the wisest of men, states, I'm going to just quote two of his verses, there's a time for everything, a time to cry, a time to mourn, a time to laugh.
Right.
There's no question this is a time of mourning in the sense of recognizing the innocent life that was taken from us.
Right.
But there's another quote from King Solomon who writes, V'hachai yitein alibo, the living shall take to heart. It is not enough. In Jewish tradition, we have a prayer called Yizker, which is said traditionally to remember those that passed on.
Right.
Traditionally, we say Yizker means to remember. For whatever reason, I like to always play the words the other way.
Right.
We usually say to remember those that lived. I prefer to say the reverse. To live for those that we remember. If we truly care for those innocent lives that were taken, then let us live their legacy.
Right. Right.
Let us do the things that they could have not done, that were robbed from them.
Right.
26 bullets were 26 bullets into the heart of every American.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now the question is, so what are you going to do about it?
Right.
If we can go back to our homes, hug our children, hug our family, educate our children to do an act of goodness and kindness, to appreciate somebody else, to give innocent, unconditional love to another human being in need, then their legacy lives on. So to some degree, of course we mourn. The bodies were taken from us.
Right.
But like the candle that we were talking of before, the flame never goes out. The soul is not physical.
Right.
Much like a flame is not tangible in the sense like it's not a piece of wax.
Right.
The flame of the human being is his soul, and his soul is divine. That lives on forever.
Right.
So I'm not, God forbid, minimizing in any way the pain and the suffering of the poor parents and family that are, it's unimaginable what kind of pain they're going through.
Right.
But at the very least, as a nation, we need to realize as an extended family, as Americans, we need to be able to just do something in the memory of those who have perished. Not just to make vigils, which I participate in, and I'm proud to do that.
Right.
But that's not the answer.
Right.
The answer is to go home and to do something, take action. B'achai yitein alibo, as King Solomon says, take it to heart and implement something in your life. Bring more light into this world so the memory of those unfortunate victims live on forever.
Right, yeah. And that's very well said and very timely and very necessary. We lost our son almost 10 years ago to natural causes. And even I, as you say, even to me, we lost our son to natural causes, and he has a great legacy for which we are extremely grateful and that we do nurture. But even to me, what these people go through, the specific circumstances of their losing their children is unimaginable to me. Even among people who have lost children, there's different circumstances. And what I really appreciate that you said is about the legacy. In the case of my son Harrison, part of his epitaph actually is that we say, or I say, I try to live my life true to his uplifting legacy, because he taught me a lot of things about life. So your words really resonate, and I hope people watching, who thankfully have not gone through, this, can understand and appreciate, what you're saying, that that's the best way to honor their memories, right?
Allow me to add one point to that.
Yeah.
The Talmud states in the Tractate of Tainus, an interesting statement, which the Rebbe would quote often. The Talmud says, as we know, the Jewish people have 3 patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yes.
4 matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. But the Talmud says our father Jacob never died. Yaakov Avinu lo meis. And the Talmud asks, what do you mean lo meis, he didn't die? He's buried. Jacob is buried in Hebron,
Right.
in Hebron, in Israel. And the Talmud says the following words, Ma'zaro b'chaim afhu b'chaim. So long that Jacob's children continue to live the life of Jacob, then Jacob himself is alive.
Yes, right.
It's not just honor. It's much more than that.
Right.
Since souls are not physical,
Right.
they're rather a spiritual entity, then the very notion that we do goodness in this physical world in their honor,
Right.
in a certain context, we're allowing the flame of their soul to continue to give light and warmth and illumination in this very world.
Right.
So it's much more than just saying, I'm paying honor and paying respect, which is very beautiful.
Right.
It's not just a tribute.
Right.
You're actually physically perpetuating the existence of
Yes,
that soul
that's
in this world.
And for that reason, I totally agree. Again, speaking from a firsthand eyewitness experience, and what I say to people, and it's not meant to be, really indulgent or to be ironic. It's true. It's very selfish. It's very selfish of me and my wife Elise, my daughter Alyssa, our family, to want to keep the spirit of our son or brother alive. And it's just what you're saying. It's you want their spirit to stay alive as long as we're alive, certainly, and beyond. And so you do things to make that happen. In the process, as we like to do and like to think, in the process, really helping the community. Through
Correct.
we have a foundation and we do fundraising and charity work, and that's how you deal with it, because otherwise it would be unbearable. That's how I feel.
Correct.
Yeah.
But allow me then just to add what we mentioned before. If birth is God's way of saying, I need you,
Right.
then you're not being selfish, Bruce.
Right.
Baruch.
Well,
Right?
Baruch, and by the way,
Hebrew name,
which
means
my
blessed.
Hebrew name Baruch means blessed, and I'm blessed to have that name. And Harrison's Hebrew name is Chaim, life.
Wow.
So isn't that?
It's a blessing to
yes,
have life.
Yes, that's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But in that context, if Baruch Chaim, if it's a blessing to have life,
Right.
then it's also a blessing. It's not selfish. It's a blessing to be able to continue
Right.
the gift that God gave you and your wife of your child,
Right.
to continue to live on by bringing warmth and beauty into this world,
Right.
even after his physical passing.
Yes. No. And that's exactly.
It's not just therapeutic, which
Right.
it is.
It is.
But it's
Right.
much deeper than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's real.
Right.
It's truth.
Right. Well, as we were saying, Rabbi, and you've done these shows before, the time flies by. It may be 30 actual minutes, but it doesn't feel like that. And so we do have to wrap it up. And I want to thank you very much, Rabbi Butman, Chabad of Westchester, right? And how many Chabads? 14 in
We are 18. We are 8 in Westchester.
in Westchester,
County.
and people can go to the website, which we've shown on the screen, to find
Yes.
out more. I mean, you and your organization and Rabbi Apar do great work, and so we really
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you for that.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. And remember, when Bruce the Blog listens, people talk. Thank you, everyone.